Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Andreas here with Grace Healing, and with me, Larry Reynolds. Yes. Good to see you all. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about how to be joyous in marriage or in any relationship. We're going to tackle that theme and see in our free flow conversation, like we always do it, to find out what comes up. My first thought is, being joyous may be a little bit of a task. It's not easy to be always joyous.
Sometimes it comes with ease in the nature of what's around you, but sometimes you need to search for God's presence to discover joy within a setting, within a situation, whether it's a relationship or even the depths of a marriage union. Sometimes you need to work to discover that place of joy or bring joy to one another, not just expect it to happen. Sometimes you actually have to produce the effort.
And there's a lot of exterior influences, right, that can disturb the joy or extinguish it, crush it, and then we don't. So
and a lot of times that's not external. A lot of times that's internal.
Because of our reaction to what happens outside, right?
Yeah, or the nature of what we brought with us.
Yeah.
That if a person is used to and accustomed to being Eeyore every day, they're not accustomed to sharing joy with their partner.
Yeah.
So there are ways we can assist our partner out of that cloud of doom and into a place of grace, loving joyfulness, even if they present to us that Eeyore character, woe is me kind of.
Right. So let's take a step back. Two people meet, new. They may date, and that's a joyous affair. It always is, right?
Yes.
Because they're attracted. Yeah, mostly, right? Otherwise,
from yours and my perspective, yes, but I've seen other relationships that have started in abusiveness.
How's that?
They've started in aggressive and abusive because the person was searching for that. I've seen other relationships that I've helped and served that I'm like looking at, why did they even show an interest in one another? Because it started out as this individual dominating the other individual. I don't care if it's male or female. I've seen both sides of the coin where a person is in this relational ground, like we've talked about this before, of the soulmate, meaning the person walking the same suffrage as the other. So this gentleman may have been raised in an abused environment, and he found himself in a woman that was abusive. And then he found comfort in the fact that his circumstances were just like they were when I was younger. Same way with a gentleman being an abuser to an abused woman, and her filling that missing sense of what she knew in her youth by positioning herself an abuser in her life. And like there's times where, like from yours and my perspective, where we know love and extend love to people that we encounter on a daily basis. It's unusual to think that somebody would search to find a relationship that is corrupted to support the corruption they knew in their youth.
Because it's comfortable, right?
Exactly. It becomes a comfort zone. To you and I, it's not comfortable. But to them, it's what they became accustomed to.
But they don't even realize it. Right?
Exactly. Until they're in the midst of it. And then they don't know how to get out of it. So, but again, back to the joyful aspect of it, even if you're a person on that side and you're recognizing, I want to change within my life, there are specific things that you can do to assist your partner out of that abusive nature and into an inclusive and supportive nature, and elevating to a point of a joyful expression of life by bringing them the recognition of healing, by bringing them the recognition of freedom from the experiences of their past that are now clouding a person's relationship.
Therapy?
It can be done through therapy, but many times therapists don't understand the importance of what's really going on the spiritual level, what is coming through generationally. Yes, counseling can bring it to the surface, and counseling can make you aware of things that you didn't know you were behaving in. Because there's some people, like I was actually counseling a young man a short while back, and to him, he was even confounded by the fact that you wouldn't treat a woman in the way that he has been treating her. He didn't have a reference to know anything different. So as I worked with him, I asked him more about, well, what would it be like if you could make her to see herself higher instead of putting her down for what she doesn't have? He was like, well, that would probably make her feel pretty good. And I was like, well, wouldn't that make her a better woman? Well, yeah. Or wouldn't that be good?
Wouldn't that make you even happier
exactly
too?
Yeah, that's where I eventually went with it. I said, what if that changed enough that all of a sudden the two of you looked upon each other differently, elevated each other differently, and all of a sudden the arguments went away because you worked together as a team. And he does amazing work, and the work that he does, I said, it comes about by you doing teamwork with people that you're in agreement with, not people that you're destroying and beating down. And he was like, wow, I never thought of it that way. I said, that's what you have in your relationship, is the opportunity to elevate one another to a new standing. Not where you came into each other at brokenness or a common experience of the past, but what can we be together if we don't take offense or don't cause offense for one another? And we actually start to look at each other and say, how can we elevate one another? I'm not feeling a tremendous amount of joy in our relationship. What can I do to help us to become more joyful in our relationship? So again, we're back to that. What's my role in working to bring joy and the opportunities to experience joy within our relationship? I believe it begins in prayer first.
The very beginning, when the partners meet or potential partners meet, they find similar interests. That makes them joyful. And, moving away from the thought of abusiveness or something from the past, just very simply day to day. She likes to bike, I like to bike. We like to travel, we both like to travel. They come up with a list, and that's why they marry. Often that's the case. I think, like, oh my goodness, we are totally congruent. We are working well together, and then sometimes it's 5-6 years into it, when all of a sudden things change, right?
So what they're doing is they're doing all these tertiary or surface level issues to formulate a lifetime decision,
right?
And they haven't allowed themselves to time. Like, if you're looking at a relationship with somebody else now, I would suggest to you that don't be afraid of reaching into the deeper conversations. Discover the nature of what you really love to do, love to be, the things that are your core essence, your core beliefs, your core thought process, and share them with one another. Because you may find that you are not the couple you thought you were, even though you both like biking, traveling, hiking, doing all the different things that you like to do together. The true elements of a holy and blessed union require deeper union, not just this tertiary or surface level engagement, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
And a lot of times people don't allow themselves because the societal norms become this engagement of a relationship. Oh, they look so cute together. Oh my God, they do so much together. And there's this pressure beginning to build of moving you in a certain direction that might not have been the direction. You might have only supposed to be together for a short season. But now there's this societal pressure. When are you going to give me grandkids? Kind of like pressure, and friends going, wow, you guys are so great together. But are you really supposed to be a lifelong union? Have you honestly sat with your partner to discover what's truly in their heart, the true depths of their mind and thought process, which is only going to deepen your relationship, to actually know them more deeply, to understand what motivates and moves them more deeply? And I think that requires an investment of effort, just like the idea of bringing joy in the relationship. It's not something to just assume, oh, it's like fireworks went off and now we're going to just do this. Even in that, like people that have been joined, and I know she's the one, or I know he's the one, great. But you still need to apply effort to understand more deeply, not your perceived notion of who they are, but who they really are by their own perspective. So if you're seeing that they've defined for you a perspective of who they are before you, you have to sit with them to understand, what are they revealing that you're seeing them fall short of themselves? That they are so much better than they think they are in this area or that area. So you're, as a relational partner, seeing in places that they need to be elevated, seeing in places that just need to be supported, and seeing places that they need to be celebrated. This is a relational encounter on all levels.
It's a commitment. I talk to people, a lot of people that want to get married, and they say, I'm afraid of commitment.
Okay.
And so my question to you is, marriage, maybe, is it going out of
No, I would say liar.
Liar?
Yeah.
But they're afraid of commitment?
Yeah, you're not afraid of commitment, you're afraid of failure. failure.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that to stir a response from.
Well, what that tells me though is, so people that say I'm afraid of commitment, they don't know what to expect.
Exactly.
Right? They're like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
And how many of us were taught this is how you're married, and this is what you do, and nobody's taught this stuff.
Yeah.
So they're going in, I'm afraid of commitment. No, you're not. You're afraid of failure because you have not allowed yourself enough time in prayerful intention, meditative attention, to understand the nature of what it is to elevate another person in your life, not possess them within relationship. Because again, in my humble opinion, a relationship with somebody that I love deeply within my life isn't about possessing, owning, or controlling them in the state they're in. It's about looking for the opportunities to elevate them to who they are in the divine view, not their human form, but the full expression of what they can be, not by control, but by observation, loving, support, and elevation of one another. That can only come by investing the time, effort, and spiritual acuity into this realm. Most people don't, and they're not taught this. They think it's just cute and wonderful that we ride bikes together, do the hike, and do all this great stuff that everybody loves to see in society, but they're not recognizing that it requires an effort and investment of time in the most important and fundamental aspect of life, divinity within. So if you truly want a union that's going to surpass the nature of human understanding and be present in divine attributes like joyfulness, how about unity? How about peace? How about purity? Let's go even further than that. I mean, there's people that it blows their mind that I could say you could have an amazing, incredible, expressive sexual relationship, and you can do all through the whole aspect of purity. It doesn't have to come through lust. They're like, what? They don't understand that it can be done without lust. And it can be expressive beyond anything that people on the earth are seeking, because they don't understand the process of seeking one another on a spiritual level. Then you find that connection, and then your bodies become one. There are, quite frankly, orgasmic experiences that are no longer physical to the body. They become universal in expression. They're not limited to the genital expression. They become inclusive of touching the very presence of God within your holy union. But that can only be attained through divine purity, not through human lust.
I think yogic teachings talk about that same thing, right?
It's possible. Yeah, I've known some that have tried to dabble into it, but then you watch, and many of those teachers end up in the place where they're in a state of impurity.
Yeah.
And then they start to turn it into this process of either physical expression or physical gain, or a process of control and possession over another, because they want to perform at a certain level that the person will remain attached to them. What I see is God first, and then what you're extending and offering is not self, but God through me, and the partner receives and is fed in every place they need to be fed. Like, many people don't understand that even in the sexual engagement could last hours of a joyful, as we were talking about, a joyful journey of one another. But they don't understand that there's an ebb and flow of sexual energy, because they all think it's all about performance. Give me the pill. Let me take the blue pill. We're just going to make this happen over the next 40 minutes, and we're going to have a blast. There could be, like I said, a 6 or an 8 hour journey with your partner that could be a beautiful expression of flowing in and out of the sexual energies and into the blessed realization of breath, connecting with God, and this holy realization of elevating one another to a greater strength of physicality, and bringing this energy that's rising within the body to heal the kidneys, to strengthen and purify the body, to strengthen and fortify the lungs. There's things that people can do within that process, and some practices, whether it's Taoist or there's actually high levels of, like, Christian mystics that used to teach this. They don't anymore. They've let go of these instructions in order to help a marital couple to be joined at a deeper level within the union, that it is spiritual first, then manifesting in the physical. It is God first, holy union, manifestation of that result, and all of a sudden, the man finds that his hand is governed a certain way over God's daughter, his bride. And then the woman is governed in such a way that she finds her lips moved in a different way, a more gentle and more compassionate way, and then at times strong and present. So there would be a loving ebb and flow of the process, instead of just feeling it always has to be a certain way to gain a certain result, and it has to be stimulated by visual stimulus or physical stimulus. It can come through the connection unto the breath, tying the breath together, breathing as one, and holding in an embrace, and just the breath flows. And then all of a sudden they find themselves present for one another. And then there isn't a forced process. There isn't physical harm, even in the physical act of entering, because now the woman is now fully present to receive, and the man is present to give. Instead of the man trying to express a will over a woman complying, that's not ready to receive, that's compliance. There's a difference. So these subtle expressions are deeper and aware and available if you're willing to choose God above what your desires are. And if you would choose God within your union, you would find that your desires would be set aside, but then you would be guided in such a way that your desires would already be met. And they would be met at a higher level than you knew was available.
Very interesting. And it stems from the fact that we are performance trained in anything and everything we do.
Exactly.
Not just a sexual act.
Yeah, exactly.
Being married, we think we have to perform in certain ways. Now, what I find interesting...
Well, that comes down to the income, too.
Yeah.
You watch people that are so driven as a couple to generate income that they lose each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing. And then the other thought that comes to mind is you have couples that marry at an early age, and by the time they're 50, let's say they're still married, they're totally different people.
Yes.
Right? And that lifespan together can be joyous.
Yeah.
But it mostly isn't.
Yeah.
It's challenges, right?
Exactly.
That you have to master together.
But what if we were God first?
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't be hungering for the daughter we married, God's daughter that we married at 22 years old. We'd be totally in love with the woman that's before us.
Mm-hmm.
Not who she was, but as God within me reveals to me the nature of the daughter before me, God's daughter before me, that's the woman I'm in love with.
Mm-hmm.
And I am blessed to have experienced the progressive realization of who this amazing woman has become in the sight of divinity, because I've been called in such a way that I'm here to elevate her in the nature of who she can be at the highest.
Mm-hmm.
And if she gets upset or angry with me, it's like, okay, what's stirring in her? What brought forth this anger within her? What brought forth this sense of lack, like she felt like I wasn't meeting her needs someplace? What have I done in a way that allowed this to happen? And if you find that you are not involved in that, and it's something possibly happening within her, then you're able to be present with her, support her, and gain the transformation from the 29-year-old beauty to the 37-year-old wonder to the 59-year-old beauty, and you're in love with this woman, not what you used to have, because it's divinity in the process of revealing that which we can be in the elevated form. And we fall more and more deeply in love with that individual and who they are in truth, not who they might have been veiled to at 29 years old, or still veiled to at 39 years old, or 42 years old, or 57 years old.
And what a lot of couples do, I think, is as they progress in their lifespan as a couple, that they look for somebody else that represents that 29-year-old,
right,
or that 39-year-old. Right?
Yeah. Or they say that, like I hear this many times, and more times from women than I do from men, is I'm not in love with him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or what is it that you're doing that's shutting off the love that you knew within you? And when did it diverge in such a way that you could no longer see that which he was becoming, and you got stuck with who he was?
Mm-hmm.
That, I believe, is that severing of your connection to the divine, because if you were truly connected to the divine, you'd realize that you were so in love with God within you that you would discover God within him no matter what state he's in. You would see God within you, reflecting God within him, and you would discover those parts of him that aren't God. And you could elevate, love, and express, and that would deepen in you a love for him that was far beyond the love you thought you had for your husband at 32 years old.
It sounds idealistic. It sounds sometimes unrealistic. We have
because society has shown us so many examples that don't include that.
50% divorce in the US, right? So, all right. So,
well, to be transparent, I'll tell you, the audience, I'm divorced.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not ever embrace the word divorce in it. I discovered in my wife at that time, and it took a course of 24 years, a good period of time during that I honestly needed to love her more deeply and discover that she wasn't really interested in being in a relationship, period, with me as a husband. No matter what I did, no matter how I did it, no matter where I was, the love that I conveyed was not received as a husband to a wife. And no matter what I did, I had to find a way. Okay, so if this is the case, how do I love her more deeply? Not, oh, I can't believe she won't love me. Because I tried for 24 years. So I had to find a way to, okay, how can I change this? How can I find a way to love and elevate her? And it was, well, let's get you the life you do want. And lovingly support that situation until she started to find the definition of the life that she wanted and elevate it in a way that could move her forward. It wasn't a battle over what we had or possessed. It was more of a like, okay, let's find you what you do want. How much can I love you more than I have to this point? And I can love you through that process of change. And then she was able to name it. Well, I want a divorce. I'm like, great. Well, I love you dearly. Let's do that, because I'm going to love you in a way that's going to elevate you into that step and move you into a new direction of life. And I'm not going to try to destroy you, tear you down, or deconstruct your life. I'd rather elevate you in such a way so that you land on your feet and find what you're seeking, even if it's not me. So to me, that's a definition of how I loved my partner. And now in my relationship, I extend that love to her still, but I extend it first through God. That she would know God's love first, my love second. Same way I did it through our lives with my children. God's love first, my love second.
But if I may ask, how was it at the beginning when you met?
First date, engaged, and then a year later married, and it just progressed. And I thought from my perspective, it was wonderful and great.
Okay. Yeah.
But it became very distant, and no matter what I did, I couldn't find the answer as to why.
Yeah. So you didn't have that awareness that you have now, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And but you came to an awareness, and it led to a separation. But for others, there's an opportunity to strengthen.
Yes, they can. They can. Like if they come together in fullness of agreement before one another and say, I feel we're kind of missing the mark here. And again, I had tried that for many years, and we need help and understanding, and we need agreement in the prayer process to understand what we're missing with one another. And you reach and present the need. And in that counseling process, in our case, we found that it wasn't there. It wasn't there in relationship. So it's like, again, I had to do this without taking offense. I had to look at it like, this isn't about rejection being thrown at me. It's like it's showing me something different. So in my case, I had to find, how am I going to love more deeply? In other relationships I've witnessed where at that point, and I've taught people this, they were 7 days away from divorce, one that just popped into my head, and we started speaking words of life for one another. The husband started speaking first person as the wife of, as God's daughter, I am blessed and holy. I am governed through God's presence. I move through discernment, holy clarity in all the things that I do. I find deep love, joy, and blessing within my union with my husband. The guy is saying this. And then the woman is saying, Yahweh, I thank you that I, your son, am moved with greater clarity, wisdom, discernment, and understanding. I have strength and forbearance, clarity, and a forthright nature. And she was speaking these. Within 3 days, they canceled the appointment with the attorney. Within 7 days, they were head over heels in love with each other, and they were in their 70s.
Yeah.
So now that was after, 40 years of marriage, and they were done. But getting rid of those veiled impressions from that singular union of soul upon soul becoming one, they were able to release the spiritual impediments that moved them back into a place of agreement in their union that they were one together. And they were like kids again, deeply in love, head over heels with each other, and having a ball in life again. Yeah. And that was after, quite frankly, out of their 40 plus years of marriage, that was 16 years of living hell that transformed into blessing over the course of a couple of weeks. Yeah.
And it seems to me that sometimes these marriages need an outside impulse, the counseling.
Right. Yeah.
Because sometimes you're so embedded in in your drama, as a couple, that you don't even think the thoughts, the words that you just spoke, of God first.
I'll tell you the funny aspect of it. When I was with them and it was being uncovered, all the stuff, I said to him, I want you to write down the details of your princess. And I said to her, I want you to write down the details of your Prince Charming. Mm-hmm. So to see this older couple there, you could see him go, now I'm going to write it out exactly how I want them to be. But they didn't know I was going to make them say it for the other. Mm-hmm. They thought they were giving a script that the partner had to become. Mm-hmm. But what happened was when the woman started reading as the man and the man started reading as the woman, he fell so in love with this process. I'm not kidding you. He laminated it and he would have that in and out of his pocket 4 or 5 times an hour all day long while he was working in the garden or moving the cars or doing whatever he was doing. He was reading that thing out loud. Mm-hmm. So it was heard. Now, she wasn't there. She was off doing her thing, doing other things on their other properties or whatever she was doing. But she was reading out loud the idea of her prince. What happened is the transformation within the union, that all of a sudden they were able to see them in truth of who they were before God, mm-hmm. not the history they had for 40 years mm-hmm. of how they had painted a picture of each other in their own minds. They were refined in seeing them as God saw them, which was that prayerful moment where they sat down and wrote out a descriptive of their partner without deficiency.
Wow, that's awesome.
Powerful stuff. Yeah. So they were speaking words of life for one another in fullness of agreement to receive what their partner was going to say, because that was the completion of our time. The first council session was this place of reckoning. Okay, so you're agreeing that you're going to say these prayers? Yeah. Now you're agreeing that he's going to be speaking these prayers for you? Yes. And she's agreeing that you're going to say these prayers? Yeah. Okay. And you agree that she's going to be speaking these prayers for you? And they were in fullness of agreement that they were off for the races. Yeah. And there was joy, blessing. Wow. Amazing things that entered into their lives for one another.
That is great. That's a joyous moment for them.
It is.
The rest of their lives.
It is.
And another part of marriage, of course, is that you have a family, children.
Yes.
That add another level of complication or drama, possibly, or and joy, of course.
It could be all those things. Yeah. It could be all of those things. But again, we have to take care not to get ensnared with the concept of drama.
Yeah.
Because it's actually revelation. Mm-hmm. It's showing us the challenge or difficulty the child is experiencing. When our child becomes, and you know that I've been through this, when our child becomes something that they're not, you have to look at it and say, okay, whoa, what influence outside them is making them to become something they're not? What is counseling or moving them or stressing them or pressuring them mm-hmm. to move in a direction that has never been the nature of who they are? Let go of distress, let go of fear, let go of judgment, be present and attuned for the times when the child's heart opens to receive. Don't just bark into a need because they're going to hear it like a hound barking in the wilderness. It's not going to come with a value. But when they reach to you at a point of an open heart, I'm confused, I'm in fear, I don't understand, I'm afraid of this, or I'm scared of that, or I have anxiety about this. It's like, don't sit down in fear. Release the fear that it elicited within you. Release the anxiety, which is probably attached to them generationally from you in the first place. Relinquish those things and allow for a safe ground for full and clear declaration without you taking offense for decisions they're making in their lives, without you taking offense for the type of counsel they received from another, without you taking offense that they chose to trust somebody instead of you at a time of need, but to listen and understand what's formulating the thoughts within them beyond that initial fear or anxiety.
And that may be easy to say for a father that's awake, but a mother maybe not. In the family unit, it becomes more complicated then.
Well, it does, especially if you have partners that aren't in agreement.
Right.
But if you have two partners that are in that loving embrace of each other's hands, looking into one another's eyes at difficult times, breathing as one, choosing divine guidance over their own thought process, then they will see this rise from the side, and together, in the fullness of love, compassion, clarity, wisdom, understanding, and discernment, they'll be looking at the situation, not, oh my God, am I going to fail as a dad, or am I going to fail as a mom? Those fears need to be put aside within the partnership in order to serve God's child, not yours.
Yeah.
You're merely custodian. You need to be moved to a place to recognize that you are first custodian over God's child.
Yeah.
And then from there, you move with greater peace, clarity, and awareness that God will guide you in such a way to move this child to a higher state of elevation, just like we talked about in the beginning stages of this, and understanding that a marriage union was about elevating one another.
Mm-hmm.
Same with a parent to child. It's not about beating them down, controlling them, and making them submissive. It's about elevating them to be all that they can be at the highest states of their being, and not harming them to fall back into their weaknesses.
Yeah, we come always back to the fact that it starts within.
Yeah.
So even if we talk about a couple being married or about to be married, you first do your work inside yourself.
Exactly.
Before you can get married.
Honestly, I think that's one of the biggest deficiencies.
Yeah, exactly.
And people are not allowing for the time for spiritual development between each other before they determine a union.
Right. And then what happens if that work is not done, if that union is not solid, then it's like a ripple effect to the kids. So,
yeah.
So
that's like when I married couples, only if we could be in counsel with one another for a year. Because there is a reality to this one requires much prayer and fasting, meaning that there takes time to gain understanding, to gain full release, to gain wisdom and discernment, and to recognize the nature of who you are before God, not how your circumstances have established you to be. It takes time and understanding and a peeling away of layers that doesn't happen as a teen or a 20 or a 30-year-old dating. Those things don't happen because they're in the social confines of expectation within relationship, or engagement with others within a union, or engagement within how Jerry and Mary received you at the party tonight. It's not about the spiritual development process. And that's where it falls short. Is people are not allowing for the spiritual development, which is the foundation of a lifelong union. Yeah. It really is.
I have a feeling that you would never tell a couple, you shouldn't get married. But have you had situations where couples would say,
yeah,
maybe we should wait?
I've also married them because that's their journey. I could see the nature that where they were going. Now, if they could have received the counsel that was being offered them, they could have diverted that and redirected it. But since they were so set in their societal programming in a certain way that they weren't permitting themselves to receive that higher level counsel that could have moved them into a union that would have sustained far longer than it had. So whether it lasted 10, 12, 14, 5, 3 years, one way or the other, there were some that I saw that, are you sure you really want to head down this pathway? And oh yes, we're so deeply in love. I said, great. Now, can you set that aside and honestly seek from within your hearts if this is your true calling? And some of them couldn't answer that clarity, but they still pushed forward because now they had the external pressures of mom expecting the wedding to fall on April 15th or whatever, So there were these external expressions that were beginning to fund and move that relationship. And then they found out 7 years into it that they couldn't function together because they weren't applying the spiritual aspects of their union. And it all became about societal imposition or expectation of others, or frustrations that they couldn't meet the expectations of others, or they couldn't meet the expectations of each other because they did not define them before they became a holy union. And they entered into this holy union and started to discover, I didn't want to do that. Well, I wouldn't want to do that in my life. And they uncovered over the course of 7 years that they weren't supposed to be together. But then, if they could just hear the message, you could offer thanksgiving for the gift of this 7 years and learning and spiritual growth and the opportunity to love one another, and don't try to tear each other down. Yeah. That was shocking to them. They couldn't understand that you could love somebody and releasing them into a new direction of their life. Yeah. And that's not being taught. Because everybody wants to hang on. I don't want to fail in marriage. Well, what if you could succeed in marriage, even if the partner doesn't want it? What if you could love them to the highest possible level? So my heart would be to see a union magnified, increased, and grow to the highest possible level.
There's one thing that's good about the Catholic Church. I was brought up in the Catholic Church, is that you were required to do a premarital count or premarital. What was it? We went to a place for a weekend, and there were 7-8 other couples, which was a good experience. I think that's great. So back to the question of commitment that I addressed before. I'm from Switzerland. In Switzerland, I think in Europe in general, marriage is becoming a second thought.
Well, think about it from the royal impression. It was a construct of instrument in order to gain increase.
Marriage.
Yeah, it used to be this thing that was used as a tool to gain, geological stability or financial stability or property stability.
So you think marriage is not necessary then?
No, I think it's highly necessary from the spiritual union perspective, not contract backwards. So in other words, I don't sign the contract and then try to make it work. I find the spiritual combining of our union, then we sign a contract. Before, it was all about this contractual agreement, and now maybe you'll grow in love. Or it was, I'm so in love with him, let's sign the contract, but then they don't even have any understanding of what they are spiritually to one another. My concern is societal as a whole has missed the component of establishing the spiritual union first.
And in Europe, I see that. I see that very clearly. It's all these civil unions that you have. And then, some friends amongst my relatives in Switzerland once told me and said, Daniela is not married anymore. She has moved on to her next life partner. So it has become a contract. It expires, and then you do the next one, the next contract. How about same-sex marriages? What do you thought about that?
Is there fullness of agreement?
If there is
prayerful agreement in the couple that's joining together as one. My challenge is many times that I've prayed over same-sex unions, they have discovered that it's not about them. They're trying to prove somebody else that they don't need a woman in a relationship, or they don't need a man in a relationship. It's not about their union many times. I'm not saying all the time. Now, I have found beautiful, blessed, and holy unions in like gender relationships, beautiful ones that were like, and some of them felt like they were being hijacked by like the gay community, or they were being hijacked by the LGBTQ plus thing. They were being hijacked by it because they said, I'm not gay, I'm just deeply in love. And people couldn't understand that. And I could see that with somebody because they are deeply in love with one another through purity. And I've even known relationships that a man and a man or a woman and a woman that have been deeply in love with one another, that were joined in a holy union and have never once even been together physically. But society looks at them because they're joined in a union, and they turn it into this whole bed thing, this bedroom thing. And they lose sight of the fact this is a truly blessed, holy, and loving union that is in support of one another and prayerfully joined with one another and knows of God's presence within themselves. And they are not the way society wants to define them. They are deeply head over heels in love with God and their union. That, to me, is beautiful.
It is, but it's more difficult for them in the societal context to be joyful.
It used to be.
It's better now.
It's changed, but then it's also changed, in my opinion, by motivations that aren't of the purity. Because there is a pure expression, and there's also a corrupted expression, and there are many corruptions that are coming to this process that are taking it out of the sense of divine blessing. And they're moving it to a place of justification, righteous indignation. They're moving it to a place of hatred for other groups. They're moving away from something instead of towards something in blessing. And I've seen many unions that have formed up that way because they went into this to prove something, not because they went into it through love. And my hope is that even as I prayed over couples, whether I don't care whether it's gay women or gay men, or I don't care what it is, or mixed relationships, I don't care. When I'm praying over it, it's like, what does God see within this union? And I've discovered many times a blessed and holy and pure union. And I've also discovered many times when I've prayed over a couple, they all of a sudden look at each other and realize, oh my God, I was just trying to prove to my dad that I could do it without a man after he was so abusive to me my whole life. That's why I just rejected men. And they were healed from that. And then I'm thinking of this one beautiful couple of women. They were professional in their lives. One was a doctor, one was an attorney. They had been together for, at that point, I think 18 years. And when I prayed over them, they both look at each other in tears and realize that they had been playing out somebody else's agenda. Now they have this beautiful, loving relationship in their lives, but they still have their lives together, financial lives together. But now one of she married a man, deeply in love, beautiful and blessed spiritual union with this gentleman, and they still love one another dearly, but they honor the relationship of love of what they were blessed to experience for 18 years together and the financial experiences that they walked together. And they've slowly, over the course of now, it's we see now probably 12 years since that prayer occurred, and now over that 12-year period, they have dissolved in love those ties, so that now they are blessed in their unions of their own and head over heels in love with the unions that they share, but they share them based upon their ground, not based upon generational influence. But many people are not spiritually mature enough to look at the situation to say, how is society defining it? I'm not defined by society. I see this woman in the deepest of love, and this woman sees me in the deepest of love. I see this as a blessed and holy union. What can it become in the highest expression? And what they found was a divine expression that was even deeper than what they thought was available to them in what was a gay union. They found a blessed and beautiful experience of life that was filled with joy that they couldn't even imagine when they loved each other into new expressions of their lives. And again, one woman joined in another beautiful relationship with a woman that fell so deeply in love with her previous wife because they were so strong and supportive of one another. I mean, it was just so beautiful. It wasn't societal trying to tear it down for what it was. It was just a true, loving, and personal experience with their healing and freedom from how dad had abused them both to think that they couldn't join with a man.
What a beautiful message. I want to wrap it up, but
okay.
Do you have something that you need to get rid of? Your passion is overflowing.
No, it is, because from a societal standpoint, I see how people judge like gender unions. And I'm like, I don't agree. I don't agree that you should be in a place of judgment over that. And I don't believe that you have a right to impose your perceptions on another person's journey. I believe we have an obligation to be prayerfully attuned and aware of what's unfolding, because we might see unions that are forming from the wrongful motivation, meaning it's an imposed directive instead of something that's truly coming of their hearts. My hope and prayer for every single union that I witness and I've been blessed to join is that it is truly they that are choosing to be as one with one another, not the societal implications or the societal governance trying to make them a certain view to justify their decisions, meaning other societal decisions. And that's what we're seeing many times within that realm right now, is many of the counsels and the offerings and the pressures are to justify previous actions from other people, not honestly weighed upon this couple before them at that moment now, or even breaking it down for the moment before they're joined as a couple. What about the individuals? What's been within their spiritual journey? Can we bring them freedom from those spiritual experiences so that they can make these decisions of their own accord between them and God, not by societal implication? That's
a good wrap up, but I'm going to wrap it up too with by just saying a couple of things. We started this conversation by saying how to have a joyful marriage or relationship, how to bring joy back into a relationship or into a marriage. And what I can conclude through what we just talked about is it starts with your own spiritual development.
It's almost like within you.
Yeah, it is. And only then can you do the next step and consider having a union of whatever shape and form that union has, and then procreate, have the children, grow a family, so that you will be ready to be the example and teach. Our school system, our society,
provide that.
There is nothing. I mean,
the bottom line is it's not even allowing the person the opportunity to discover the inventory of who they are in order to know what they present to another.
Yeah.
And what people are doing is running out in their lives, presenting a warehouse full of stuff that they don't even know exists within it, and they're trying to sell it without a value.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they present all this that they don't even know they hold, and the other person is all of a sudden put in charge of helping them uncover what's in the warehouse. Yeah. My personal observation is I've seen successful, beautiful, long-term relationships unfold as people understood, first of all, what my failings are, how to release them, and what is my inventory? What do I have to offer? Mm-hmm. Not just am I a beautiful figure, or not just am I a handsome man, or not just am I worth this or see that or valued at this amount. What do I really have to offer that's intrinsic, that's deep within? Do I understand the nature of who I can be through compassion, through the divine attributes? And when I have a clear picture of that, then I'm of great value to my partner, because my value is now out there to be seen by my actions, not my words. Mm-hmm. And she is able to witness that and wish to celebrate it with me. And I can now see her or him in wholeness in such a way that I can elevate those things in them for society to see what I would believe to be glory, divine glory. So if I can be pointing at God within them to be their highest self, people are going to see, recognize divine glory in every aspect of their lives. Same way with me. My partner would elevate me in a way that I would be functioning in those higher natures, those higher attributes, God first in all my actions, and they would see glory in my life. Even if the storm is raging outside, mm-hmm. I would still be that level sense, that clarity, that understanding, that wisdom, the clarity, the unity that brings us together. And that's what I believe is available for people in relationship. If they could do it spiritual first, without offense, compassionate observation, and move forward as God within. Mm.
What an inspiration for me personally too, as you know, and some of you know, I'm a wedding officiant. I work with couples, and I actually have a process in place where I do a premarital counseling, but I am inspired to bring it up to a new level and bring some of the spiritual elements in, because what I have is it's a program that I can buy into. It's very good, and it takes that inventory that you're talking about, but more on a, what's your mindset, what's your social background, and then we find that common ground. Or
but that can be worked in reversed as well.
Absolutely.
Because like when you're saying what's that person's mindset, now you as this marriage supporter and individual that marries people, you can see from the mindset that, there's a spiritual nature here. There's a lesser form there. And you can help them to see that together as a couple, relinquish it, bring divinity into its place, and elevate one another to higher levels.
Exactly. And I was thinking exactly that will help me. And for you, audience, thank you for listening so long with us. I also wanted to point out, I think it became clear to me that there is help out there.
Yes.
When you are in a relationship, or embarking in a new relationship, or you have been stuck in a relationship, seek the help.
Yep.
Gracehealing.org is our website, and we have people. Larry would love to have a conversation with you and counsel with you to get to this new ground in your relationship.
Seen thousands of people find new, like that couple I was mentioning. I mean, that's one example of thousands that we've witnessed where couples have shifted from the place, literally or actually 7 days away from sitting before an attorney and transforming it into a blessing that's beyond measure. Their family is just completely blown away by watching the changes that transpired. There's no more that holiday tension. There's just love present and joy. It's just that's what's available.
And often people think, how difficult. I'm not sure if I can master this on my own. You don't have to.
Yes.
There's help out there. There's counselors out there. There's gracehealing.org. Contact us, and we would love to work with you. So
yes.
All right. I think
like and share on the video, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Take care.
See you
Be
next
blessed.
time. Bye-bye.